Welcome to Learning Photography with Duck. Here's your host, Duck.
Ta-da! We're live. Okay. Welcome everybody to another edition of Learn Photography with Duck. I am once again your host, Duck. And today is typically our photo Q&A, but we actually going to be doing something a little bit different. In the past episodes, we talked about doing a live workshop with getting some of our members in. And today we are actually doing that. We have Gloria, who was in our last session. You got a chance to kind of like meet her there. She's in the studio with us today. And with us, we have the lovely Amanda, who's going to be our model, and introduce you all to them in a little bit, who just joined Bill. All right, and Maureen. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right, so today's session is going to be on studio lighting for portraiture. All right, so Gloria approached me. She says, I'm learning. I want to be a portrait photographer. But I'm having a little bit of trouble, figuring out the lights, which I can understand. They can be very much a challenge. So I suggested that she come in, we do a live session, and she's gratefully decided that she's going to join us. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to break down studio lighting. We're going to be using flash photography today. So if that's something that appeals to you, something that you want to get into, that's perfect. Though we're going to be dealing with studio lights, and I'll show it to you in a second. The same principles apply if you're using speed lights. All right, so just take what you learn and you just basically scale it down for speed lights. Okay, all right, so let's switch over to our studio space. All right, oh, my big head's in the way. There's Amanda. Say hi, Amanda. All right. Oh, let me turn this so we can everybody see. Okay. There, Amanda. All right. And all right. Good, good. Can everybody hear me okay? Give me a thumbs up. Awesome, awesome. Because I'm a little bit further away from the microphone. All right. And let's introduce, come on, get up out of the chair. She's over there. This is Gloria.
Hi.
Okay. So Gloria is going to be our student today. We have the lovely Amanda, okay, and we have our studio space that we are going to do our setup. And I keep stepping in front of you. All right, it's gonna take me a second to get used to this. All right, because we are live on Zoom, if anybody has any questions whatsoever, feel free to voice it. I'll hear your question and I'll be more than happy to explain anything we're doing here in the studio. Okay, we're good? Okay, awesome, awesome. All right, so what we're going to do today is walk through the principles of setting up a studio shot with a single light. So we're going to start off with a single light. And depending on how time goes, we'll work up to 2 lights. And maybe towards the end, if everybody's feeling confident, we'll throw in a 3rd light. Okay? But the principles still apply and everything. Okay. So, yes. Oh, already? Wow. Awesome.
And you may answer this as you go along, but I just noticed that your backdrop is gray.
Correct.
Okay. Will that affect the color of your backdrop, affect what you do with your lighting?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Okay. Not as far as lighting is concerned. All right. Where color comes into play is more in your artistic choice of how you want to use color harmony within your compositions. All right, so that background is very neutral because it is gray. All right, so I can put just about any color in front of that and it'll look good. All right, so I do a lot of corporate headshots, so I kind of try to keep my backgrounds fairly neutral. All right, I do have a different one that has brown tones in it, but I figure, you know, this is already up. It's not so much about our background as much as it is about our lighting. So, okay.
Well, I was asking because I had heard that having a white background would cause the light that, a lighter background would cause the light that you use to have an effect on your.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean. Yes. Yes and no. It depends on how you place your subject in relation to the background and your lights in relation to the background. All right. So if one of the things that you have to be concerned about if you have a white background is light bouncing back towards the camera from that background, and then just kind of creating a fuzzy mess, which is called light bloom. So if you get light bloom, that kind of it's that light that kind of wraps around your subject because it's so bright. Okay, it's usually you'll see it in somebody who really doesn't know how to control their lights very well. All right, so with that understanding, let's get into our first lesson. All right, so we're going to start off with a single light, but hopefully you'll see that as you add additional lights, the same fundamentals will come into play, but you're just gonna have to, add that one additional factor every time you add a light. Okay. So now, if we were to be shooting with just available light, just whatever is available, all right, we have our subject, we have our background, and we have our foreground. All right, so those are kind of like three different areas. But all those three areas are affected by the same light source. Did somebody have a question? Was that you, Fred? No. Okay.
Accidentally spurred.
Oh, okay. All right. So we have one light source that's hitting all three areas: the foreground, our subject, and our background. Okay. So we normally consider that as a single zone, typically, okay, here in the studio. Outside, you would probably consider it as two zones, one zone for your subject and one zone for the background, because you have the flexibility of being able to move around with your environment and put your subject in very specific places. For example, you're outdoors, lots of bright light, all right? You have the sun hitting the trees and the bushes and whatever is in the background, and you can put your subject in that light, all right? And now you have one light source hitting everything. You have a single zone. But you say, okay, well, the light's a little bit harsh on my subject. I'm going to take my subject, I'm going to move them from that harsh light environment, and I'm going to put them under the shade of a tree. So now we've taken them out of that light environment into a different lighting environment. So now we have to consider that we have two zones, one for the subject, one for the background. Okay? Does that make sense? Everybody get that? All right. So here in the studio, we have 100% complete control of how many zones we want to create. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep it simple. We're going to create a single light source portrait. Okay. So come on up, Gloria. We'll bring you into say hi, everybody. All right. So what we have here is we have a strobe light in with a softbox. Let me bring this up. Okay. Strobe light And then I have a large softbox. Let me see if we can turn it. There we go. Okay. So this is going to be our primary light, also called our key light. Okay. So what happens is the light comes out of the modifier and it's going to hit our model. Okay. But the light doesn't stop here. The light keeps going. Okay. And it's going to travel past our model and hit whatever is back here. Okay. So we have a single light source hitting zone 1 and zone 2. Okay, so we can consider our background as zone 2. All right. And the way we can control this is how close we get our light to the model and how close we get our model to our background. Okay. So if we place our model to the background, all right, our model standing here, the model and the background are all in the same light. So that would be just one zone. Right? As soon as we step away, we're going to have more light here, less light there. All right, because of fall off. Everybody follows that, right? Okay. All right. So how do we figure out how much light we're going to need? Right? The nice thing about a studio is that we can put in as much light as we want, or I should probably say as much light as we need for this environment. All right. And it depends on what the effect is that we want to get from our portrait. All right. Actually, let me go ahead and switch over real quick to the desktop, because I asked Gloria to send me some examples of the type of portrait work she wants to get. Oh, you know what? I should probably go ahead and share the screen. Give me 1 second. Screen, share. There we go. Make this a little bit better for you guys. All right. Everybody see that okay? Awesome. All right. All right, so she shared a couple images. This one here, you can see that our subject is very well lit. All right, and we have a darker background. Now, the darker background is due to a couple of things. One, less light is hitting the background, but also the background itself is tonally darker. Okay. We also have this one here, which again has a neutral gray background that's a little bit on the dark side. All right, but you can see that she is properly lit. Okay. And then the last one is a little bit more creative. This is side lighting. All right. So this is really, really, our artistic lighting, very moody. All right. But again, we got the light that's properly illuminating our subject and less light hitting the background. So we have two zones. All right. Zone 1 is our model. Zone 2 is our background. Zone 1 is our model, zone 2 is the background, and the same thing here. Zone 1 is the model, zone 2 is the background, okay? All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna try to kind of replicate probably this one or probably this one here. This is probably the easiest setup, okay? So if we look at that, let me come back. So if you look at that, we see that the light is hitting our subject pretty well. Actually, there we go. We'll keep that up for a second. So our light is hitting our model pretty well, okay? All right. So that's going to be our goal. We're going to get a single light hitting the model the most, and then a little bit on the background. Okay, so now we got to figure out, okay, we need to figure out what our camera settings are and what our setting is for the light. Right? Once we get that, then we can work on where our position to our light is going to be. Okay, so we're going to keep things very, very simple at first. All right, I have the light in relation to our model. The light is at about 45 degrees to her left, about 45 degrees up from her line of sight. Actually, about 30 degrees, not quite 45. Okay, so it's above eye level and off to one side. Okay, so what happens is that we're going to get light on this side of her face and shadow on this side. All right, so what we're doing is we're using light to sculpt our three-dimensional form, right? Okay. All right, so where do we start with our camera settings? Okay, so what do you normally like to shoot portraits at? What aperture?
5, depends. 5, 6.
5.6 to
Uh,
f8. Okay, so 5.6 to f8. All right, so right there, those are artistic decisions that you just made. All right, and takes care of one setting. Okay, the other two settings are ISO and our shutter speed. All right, so because we are in a controlled environment, we can utilize our native ISO settings for our camera. All right, so we're going to be shooting with Canon today, and my Canon, the base ISO is ISO 100. Okay, so now we have our 100 for ISO. We have 5.6 to f8 for our aperture. All right, that leaves us with our, what's the third one? Putting you under the gun already. Shutter speed, right? Shutter speed. Okay, so let's pick an arbitrary number. Okay, but is it really arbitrary? All right, because one thing that we have to keep in mind is that our cameras need to synchronize with our flash equipment to a certain extent. Okay, depending on the type of flash, there is a maximum shutter speed you can hit before it exceeds that synchronization speed. And most of the modern digital cameras is somewhere about a shutter speed of 200 to about 250 before it starts getting out of sync. Okay, so I don't like to push the extreme end, simply because we're working with a wireless transmitter. So there is a little bit, it's a microsecond, but there is a delay, and sometimes that delay adds up. So what I like to do is whatever the max speed is, I like to be just under it. So instead of 200, 250, I'll go to like 125. All right. So that gives me my third number. So all of this has been done without taking a meter reading off the camera or even picking up the camera. Okay. We just pulled numbers not out of the hat, but we actually gave it some thought. There's a reason for all those numbers, right? Our base ISO 100, our aperture based on our focal length and our depth of field, all right, 5.6 to f8, okay, and our shutter speed we want to keep just under our sync speed, all right. So none of those were arbitrary, all right, but they also were not based on any meter reading to the room. Okay? All right. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take, all right, 1/125th of a second, 5.6 or f8?
5, 6.
5.6? Okay. making her do the work. And ISO's already at 100. Okay, so I don't have the flash on. So actually, give me 1 second. I'm going to be shooting tethered. How many of you have never shot tethered before and need a quick lesson? Yeah? Okay, a couple of you. All right, so I'm going to be shooting tethered through Lightroom. All right, so if you have Lightroom, you have tethering capabilities. All right, so let me switch over to our desktop. We are going to go to shooting in Lightroom Classic. You can see we had some. Let me delete these. Oh no, I don't want to delete them. No. Escape. Okay. All right. All right. So we are in Lightroom. Okay. And right up here where it says File, all right, File, a little bit down, about a third of the way down, it says Tethered Capture, all right, and, oh, I'm already, all right, see, there we go, my secondary screen, all right, File, Tethered Capture, Start Tethered Capture. Okay, and it's going to pull up this dialog box. All right, let me switch back over. Okay, on the camera side, you can see that I have a USB cable hooked up to my camera, and this is about 15 feet long, and it's plugged into my computer. Okay. So you're going to need a cable that plugs into the USB port on your camera. All right, so you have to make sure you have one that's appropriate to whatever size USB port is on your camera. All right, and you want it long enough that it will reach your laptop or desktop, depending on what you're using. Okay, the camera needs to be on in order for the computer to recognize the camera. So the camera's on, okay? That's taken care of. Switch back, okay? And what you're gonna do is you're gonna give it a session name. Now, those of you who know me know that I like to keep things as simple as possible. The less thinking I have to do about incidental stuff, the easier it is for me. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I give it the session name of hashtag tethered. All right, the reason I put a hashtag is because it's going to create a folder on your system, and the hashtag will float it to the very top. Okay, now this hashtag tethered folder is, I use it all the time, so it's literally a permanent folder on my system. I don't remove it. I just keep reusing it over and over. And when I'm done with my shoot, I'll take whatever photos are in that folder and I'll move them to their appropriate location later. All right. But for now, it becomes a dump site for all my images. Okay. You have naming convention. All right, you can rename the files as they come into the system. In this case, I'm going to rename it to Learn Photography with Duck Q&A and today's date, month and year. Okay, just to keep track of the images. Okay. Oh, and I'll go and start number 1. Okay. I have my location. All right, which is my photos folder. Okay, so under my photos folder, it's going to create that hashtag tethered folder. All right, and it's going to add it all in. Okay, I'm not going to add it to a collection. I don't need it in a collection. And the metadata that I'm going to keep is just my copyright information. Okay, just my copyright. Now here, if you're shooting for a client, I suggest putting in keywords. All right, so for example, if I'm doing headshots, I'll open this up and I'll put in the keyword, or I might change the name to the person who I am photographing. All right, so I'm constantly opening up this little dialog box, and when the next person, on my schedule comes in, I'll put their name up there under the custom naming text or in the keywords. Okay, that way it allows me to keep track of certain things, but fill it in according to whatever you're shooting. Okay. The last thing is disable auto advance. I don't want to do that. Every time I take a photograph, I want to be able to see it, and I want it to advance to the next one in line. So I make sure I keep that off. I'm going to hit OK, and it's going to recognize the camera. And we have here this little control bar. And from here, you can see that it has recognized my camera. It allows me to control everything on that camera: shutter speed, aperture, ISO, and my white balance. Okay. And of course, I can put whatever develop preset that is in Lightroom. I can apply it right here on Ingest. And I just have my standard develop preset. And of course, there's the shutter button that allows me to press the button right from here, or I can use the shortcut key, which is the F12 button. Okay. Any questions on that? Let me put.
I have a question, Doc.
Yes.
So this is in Lightroom.
Correct.
Is a similar feature available in Photoshop?
No, Photoshop will not allow you to do any kind of tethered.
Okay.
No. Photoshop's not designed for any kind of content management. All right. So Lightroom, if you don't have Lightroom, Darkroom will do the same thing, which is kind of like an open source version of Lightroom. Or you can use your the program that comes with your camera. All right. So Nikon has its own proprietary software. Canon has its own software where you can plug in and do live shooting through those programs as well. Okay.
So the cameras like Nikon, Canon have software built in to allow you to tether?
No, not built in. Not built in. It's something that you load onto your computer, all right, which will recognize, obviously the Nikon software is only for Nikon cameras.
Sure.
Olympus is only for Olympus, and so on. All right. But there are also third-party software that's designed specifically for shooting tethered. All right. But most of you guys probably have the photography bundle that comes with Lightroom. So Lightroom allows you to, tether. Right. And if your camera is supported, you can also do a live view. All right. So if you're like a still life photographer or product photographer, you can throw on the live view, and whatever the camera sees, that's what's going to show up on the screen. So you can manipulate your, whatever it is you're laying out through the live view. And then when you're ready to photograph, you take it out of live view and then, go ahead and shoot. Okay. All right. Let's go back to our live. All right. So we're tethered. Okay. So go ahead and grab the camera. All right. The first shot that you take is, once you figure out what your camera settings are, the first shot you're going to take is with no flash. Okay. Why? Why do you think we do one without a flash? Wild guess.
To know what kind of light we're going to use, what we're going to need.
Actually, more.
See if it's the settings are.
Well, no, because we already know what our settings are. All right, we've predetermined that. Okay, but what we want to know is at those settings, is it picking up any light?
Mhm.
Okay, because the goal of being in a studio with studio lights is we want 100% total control over all our lights. Okay, but we're in a studio, we got, you know, overhead lights in order for us to see. Otherwise, we'll all be sitting here in the dark. And the video camera will be like, I can't see none. All right. So we do have lights overhead, but we want to make sure that those lights don't affect the photograph that we're taking. All right. So that's always going to be your first photo, is one with no flash. So go ahead and just take a shot. And you know what? Let me switch this to full. My secondary. All right. So if you see me ducking out of the way, I have two monitors going here. One is for Lightroom. That's what you guys are seeing. Where is it? Right here in the corner. Okay. But I also have a monitor that faces the studio so our photographer can see what's going on here. So I have Lightroom can open up a secondary window that allows them to see this, what's going on here. Okay. All right. So this image, let me zoom in all the way. This image is our test shot. That's the image with our ambient lights on, all right, so that we can see and work in this environment, but our flash is off. Okay. And we have our settings. So you can see up in the corner. All right. Let me see. In the corner right here. Okay. You can see that it says 1/25 of a second at f5.6, ISO 100. Everybody sees that, right? Okay. All right. So that black screen means that none of our studio lights are affecting the portrait. Okay. So now what we want to do is we want to introduce a light. Okay. So we're just going to do that by turning this on, and we need to kind of like stand you like right here. There we go. See, we're going to have to fight that a little bit. Okay. So we have the trigger on the camera. We have it. Nope. This one right here. I just turned it on. Okay.
Okay.
All right. And on the back, we can read our light settings. So if you have a radio trigger that you can control your lights with right from the camera, that's probably the best because you can make changes on the fly. But if you don't, you just look on the back of the flash and you can set your power right from the flash. Okay. So, all right. So now we got to figure out, well, how much light do we need to add to this scene so we're not getting a black screen? All right. We have two ways of doing it. One is the slow way and the other one's kind of like the fast way. Okay. We can use what's called a light meter. Okay. If you are going to be getting into studio lighting, I suggest getting one of these and learning how to use it. Okay. The other way is to just shoot, chimp it, see what it looks like on the back of the camera, and then adjust your settings from there. Okay. All right. So now, how do we use one of these? Okay. this light meter measures the output of light from a light source in f-stops. Okay, so what is an f-stop? Putting her under gun, and she's hiding behind. Here, come over here.
The light
All right, what is an f-stop?
measures the light.
Measurement of light, absolutely. Okay.
Oh, and that stop measure takes away 1/2 of the light that you had before.
Well, when you make an
Higher
adjustment,
number, you have
yes, yes.
1/2 the light you had, because they're multiples of the square root of 2.
Uh,
1.4 times 1 times 4 is 2, right? 2 times 1.4 is 2.8. 2.8 times 1.4
yeah.
is 4.
Times
They all
1 point, yes,
1.4
times
times
1.4, absolutely, yes. All right, but that's if you have something to compare against. Okay, if you don't have a 1.4 or a 5.6 or f8, there's no correlation to anything. So you need to figure out what is that first number, right?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
what I was going to ask you. How did you get your first number before you did a shot? You took a close guess and then you tweaked from there.
Well, no. My original settings, okay, were
Yeah.
nothing to do with light. Absolutely nothing to do with light. Okay. My ISO 100 was based on the base ISO value of my camera. Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't measured any light to determine whether that's appropriate or not. I'm just assigning it the value of 100 for now. Okay.
Okay.
The second value was my aperture. All right. And that was based on what I want my depth of field to be like, which is based on an artistic requirement.
Right.
Okay.
How much bokeh versus depth of field?
Well, how much depth of field I want for my portraiture. Correct.
Right.
All right. So again, I assigned that without knowing any values of light. No
Right.
meters. I'm just assigning it. Okay.
Right. That's what I was thinking about. Yeah.
Yep. And then the third value is my shutter speed. Okay. Most camera sync speed is 160. It's 60th of a second. To, for handheld, if you want handheld, you got to be at least 60th of a second and higher. All right. The max sync speed for this camera is 250. So I just kind of find that happy middle, which is 1/125th of a second. Right? So that's what I set it to. Again, I set all those three without caring about what my lights are like. All right?
Yeah, that was where I was getting confused.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. And yes, all right, because we're so programmed to evaluate the light that's existing. All right. But you can see, because I'm using a flash, I have no existing light. My light does not exist until it flashes. Correct?
Right.
So
Correct.
it's not like I can measure that right at the beginning and say, I'm going to, shoot for whatever setting is on this light. Okay. So we're thinking backwards now. All right. We're thinking backwards. We're thinking, this is what I want to shoot at, and I have to set my lights to that setting. All right. With ambient, usually it's whatever the light is, that's what we're going to set the camera to. All right.
Okay.
So now we're switching it up. We're going backwards here. Okay. So we
Okay.
got one
Yeah.
120. Yes.
If I may ask you
Yep.
another question, you're using a flash here.
Correct.
Why not use just a continuous light?
Because this is not a continuous light class.
Oh, but you could.
No. Okay. Yeah. there is no law that says you can't use continuous lights in your studio. Absolutely. All right. But continuous lights, they have a certain amount of restrictions to them. Flash tends to be a lot brighter, a lot more powerful than continuous lights. All right, so they tend to give a little bit better result. All right, but there's yeah, absolutely no reason why you can't even mix and match them. All right, but I didn't want to complicate things by mixing and matching, because now we get into a zone for continuous light and a zone for studio lights, and it gets really, really messy. So we're keeping it simple. You can't get more simple than a black frame. Okay, because this now becomes our building block. All right, we have 100% black. Now we can build on that with our light. Okay, I don't know if that made sense. All right, okay, all right, so that's how we came with the settings. All right, I just said this is what I want to work at. All right, yours may be different. You might say, you know what, I want to shoot at 200 at f8 at ISO 200. Absolutely, you can do that. All right, you're setting the requirements, not the camera. All right, okay, got it? Got it? Got it? Awesome. All right, so we have our settings. Now we need to introduce light to fit that setting. All right, and that's where this comes into play. All right, so the question was, what is an f-stop? An f-stop is a measure of light. It's a measure of light.
Not a measure of light, it's a measure of how you're containing your light.
No, a measure of light. One f-stop measures a very specific amount of light. Two f-stops measures a very specific amount of light. Okay? It's a measure of light. What you're confusing is the meter reading. The meter is reading the available light and giving you an F number, okay, which is then converted to shutter, aperture, and ISO. Okay, follow?
I mean, if I had one, I could convert them in my head.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Yes. Okay. All right. So what we need to do is we need to find out what f-stop we need our light to go to in order to register properly on our camera. Okay. And which of those three directly is influenced by our f-stop is our aperture. Okay. Aperture directly correlates with our f-stop. All right, because if we look at the exposure triangle with ambient light, okay, all three kind of control our ambient light. We look at the amount of light, and the first thing we do is we set our, what's the first thing we set? ISO. We set our ISO first. It's based on the amount of light. The more light, the smaller the ISO. The less light, the higher we go up on ISO, correct? And from there, we fine tune based on our aperture and our shutter speed. Okay? So if we want a certain amount of depth of field, we're going to use our aperture to control that aspect. Okay? All right. So we've already made those decisions here before we even have light. All right, so we're not measuring light with these settings. All right, and this is probably where you guys are getting confused, because you're used to the opposite. You're used to using the camera to measure the light, setting the settings to that light, and then taking the photograph. We're kind of working backwards here. We're dictating to the camera what we want to shoot at, and then we're going to bring the lever of a light up to meet that setting. All right? So trust me,
sense, yes.
it's a different way of thinking when it comes to studio lighting. All right? So what setting do we need to match? That is our aperture. All right? Because when it comes to intermittent light, which is our flash light, okay, our ambient light is controlled by our shutter speed. All right, that's why I can take a photo at 1/125th of a second and have it completely black. Okay, if I want, actually, do me a favor, go ahead and measure for the ambient light and take a photo. So, all right, so this controls your shutter speed, all right, and that's the only thing we're going to control. All right, so we're going to keep it at ISO 100 at 5.6, but she's going to meter using the camera and set this shutter speed for the ambient light. Okay, and let's see what we got. And there we go. All right, and what do we have? Oh, you know what? No, I'm sorry. We had the flash on.
Yeah.
Sorry. Let's turn the flash off. The flash was on. Disregard that. Okay, so make sure you get the, yeah. All right, what do we get? No, you didn't measure for the ambient light. So you're gonna need to really come down.
Hey,
All right.
I got a quick question.
Yeah.
Why does it flip the image horizontally?
Why does?
When the last one she took with the flash, right? Instead of your model looking to the left, she's looking to the right on the image here. I thought maybe I must looked at it.
Yeah. Go ahead and take another shot. Okay. All right, so we're looking at her. She's kind of, yeah, no, she's facing the same way. All right, you're still not there. You need to go a little bit slower. Okay.
Okay.
I don't know. Use the meter. Go ahead and take a shot. Okay. All right, so she's metering for the ambient light. Okay, it's still a little bit underexposed here. Okay, there we go. All right, so this is a little bit better. All right, probably can use maybe a half stop or so. All right, but if you notice, we are now shooting at 1/5 of a second in order to keep our ISO at 100 and our aperture at 5.6. All right. Notice how blurry that image is. I don't know if you guys can see it. All right, but it's pretty blurry. Okay. Zoom in here. All right. That's a very blurry image. All right. And the reason being is if we look, we are at 1/5 of a second at 5.6 ISO 100, which is definitely not an ideal it's not an ideal setting. Okay, so because I as a photographer want control over my situation here, I'm going to dictate to the camera my shutter speed. All right, so let's go ahead and put it back to 1/125th of a second. Okay, so that's why I'm dictating rather than letting the room dictate. Okay, make sense? Okay. All right, so go ahead and snap. We'll get our black image. okay, which is what the camera is registering as being the ambient light. So we're killing all the ambient light. All right, go ahead and turn on the flash. Yep, on the side. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to pick an arbitrary number. All right. Again, these are all arbitrary to this point. Okay. Now, my flash goes from 100% full power, which is 1:1. All right. 1/1, full power, down to, I think it's like 1/32 or 1/64 of a second in power. Okay. So it can drop really, really low. So if I look at the spread of that, all right, and I said I want something in the middle, all right, I'm going to pick something like probably F8, all right? So I'm going to set my power at 1/8 power, or not F8, I'm sorry, 1/64 to 1/1. The middle is about 1/8, all right? So I'm going to set my flash at 1/8 power, 1/8 power to start. Is it the proper setting? Who knows? I don't know. All right. But we're going to take a shot and we're going to see. It's at 1/8, right? 1/8? Yeah. 1/8. So we're going to take a shot and we're going to see what it looks like. She's using my camera, so I gotta get her. She's out of her element. She's one of those Nikon people. Nikon, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm forcing her to use a Canon. Ooh, right. So anyway, let me. Where are we? Okay. All right. So now you can see we have light. All right. We set it at 1/8 power, and this is our result. All right. So from here, all right, without using any tools, we can look at the results and say, all right, how are we doing for light? Is it underexposed? Is it overexposed? All right. And so what would you think based on this image?
I think it's a little bit under.
Little underexposed. Everybody agree with that? Little underexposed? Yeah? Okay. So if we are underexposed, what do we got to do to our light? If we're underexposed, we need to do what with our light? If we don't have enough light, what do we have to do?
Put it out.
We have to add light.
Yes.
We got to raise the power. All right. So let's go from, what's the next power up? Full stop. From 1/8 to
1/16.
No, that's taking it away. All right.
Quarter?
1/4.
Oh, 1/4.
Yep, 1/4. Okay, so we're gonna go. All right, so we're gonna go from 1/8 to 1/4. We're gonna set that and go ahead and take a shot. Okay. So we've raised the power from 1/8 to 1/4, and again, we're just taking arbitrary shots, and oh, that looks great. That looks very well exposed. Right? That looks good. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is there a reason why? Is there a reason why you're not using TTL, ETTL?
Because I want control.
Okay.
I want control. I don't want the camera controlling anything. I don't want the lights controlling anything. All right. We're in a studio. All right. So I have the ability to control everything. Okay. There will be situations, usually in an event, where things are moving. You're dealing with light that is outside of your control. All right. And in those situations, then yes, TTL may be favorable. But here, I want 100% control. Okay. once you grasp this, then you can make, you can make adjustments within your workflow to incorporate it. Okay. All right.
Actually, Doc, you actually have more spontaneity. Meaning you can set up your studio, you want to take the picture, you're all set.
Correct. Correct.
Right. Yeah, that's terrific.
Yeah.
Right.
So once I got my camera set, I want to get it to the point where I don't want to worry about my lights. All right.
Right.
I'm not taking pictures of the lights. I'm not taking pictures of the camera. I'm taking pictures of my subject. I want to devote my 100% attention to my subject. So I don't want to be thinking about lights. I don't want to be thinking about camera. Okay. So we actually took the camera equation out right at the out the gate, because I said, this is what you're going to be shooting at, camera. All right. And then we made our light match the settings. All right. And you saw that we got it within a couple of frames. All right. So it didn't take very long. Obviously, I'm explaining everything, so it seems, to take a little bit longer. But when you actually get into the studio and you have everything set up, you click, look, make an adjustment, click, look, make an adjustment, click, go, yay. All right. And it's literally that quick. Okay. Can we make it quicker? Oh, absolutely we can. All right. What we can do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring this back to, I don't know, whatever that is. Okay. I just turned the dial. All right. I turned it down. All right. So now we have our light meter. Our light meter is going to take a measurement of the light. All right. It's going to then convert it to f-stops, and it's going to give me an f-stop number back saying that's how much power you have based on a couple criteria that I'm going to enter into the machine. All right. So think of this like a calculator. Okay. Let me turn it on actually. Okay. We're going to give it two different settings right out the gate. Okay. Our first setting is our ISO, which we've already established at being 100. All right. So I plug in 100 for my ISO. Okay. We also know we're going to be shooting at 5.6. All right. Which we don't know yet because that's going to be the power of our light. And we also have our 1/25th of a second for our shutter speed. All right. So I have 100 ISO, 1/125th of a second. And because I don't know what the light is set to, we do know what our goal is. We want to get to 5.6. All right. So when we see 5.6 on this display, we know we have the appropriate amount of light. Okay. So what I'm going to do is this little test button that fires the flash. At one point, I'm just going to ask you to fire it. All right. So there's a little button, press on the side, and it's going to put it into a wait mode. And it's going to wait until it recognizes a flash. All right. No, I don't want you to take a picture. What I want you to do is you're actually going to press this, and it's going to fire the flash. Okay. So to use this properly, we're photographing our subject, but what is important for our subject? Her face, right? So I want to put this, typically we'll put it in line, usually like under the chin, all right? But it's going to be in line to what we're photographing. And there's two schools of thought here, okay? One is we want to actually measure the light, so we're going to aim it towards the light, or we can get an evaluative measurement, so we'll point it to the camera. Okay, I find I get slightly better results pointing it to the light. All right, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to point it to the light. I'm going to activate the button and go ahead and trigger it. Okay, and it's going to give me a number. What's it say? 2.8. Okay, so I don't know if you guys can see this. 2.8. Yep. So 2.8. based on the power that is assigned to this light right now, I need to change my camera to 2.8 in order to get a proper exposure. But do I want to shoot at 2.8? Absolutely not. What do you want to shoot at? 5.6. All right. So now
Doubling your power?
we need to figure out, yes. Okay. So what has more light? 2.8 or f16? f2.8 or f16? What has more light?
2.8.
Nope.
What do you think? I'm not understanding your question then.
All right. The light coming out of my out of my flash. Okay. When I take a reading, what has
It
more?
takes a whole lot more power to hit f16 than 2.8. Yeah.
Correct. All right. So this is something that a lot of beginners have a hard time, wrapping their head.
As much power.
Right. Because, a lot of people are thinking, reflective metering. All right. We are actually talking about the light that's actually correct. Incident metering, which is the actual light that's coming from the flash. All right. So we are at 2.8. Okay. So that tells me that there's really not a lot of light coming in from the flash. I need to increase in order to get to 5.6. All right. The nice thing about most of these meters is that there is a little scale that will give you all your f-stops, so you can very quickly, you don't need to have those numbers in your head, but it's nice to have it because you can say, okay, well, 2.8, the next one is f4, okay, and then f5.6. So that tells me that we're 2 stops away from whatever is on the coming out of the light. Okay, so if we look at what like I said, I just turned the dial. I have no clue what it was. What's it say?
No, I can see.
1/16 of a power plus a third. All right, 1/16 power plus a third is what I randomly dialed. So if we need to go up 2 stops of power, we got to go from 1/16 to 1/8 will give us 1 stop.
No, from a 16 to 11 is 1.
No, we're dealing with flash power, not aperture.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
So we're at 1/16 power on our flash. Okay. So we need to go to the next power up, which is a quarter power, or I'm sorry, 1/8 of a power, which will give us 1 stop, which will bring us from f2.8 to f4. And then 1 more stop from 1/4 to 1/8 will bring us to 5.6. All right. But we also have that plus 1/3. All right. So we're going to go from, all right, we're going to go from 1/16. We're going to dial it in to 1/8 to 1/4 plus a third and set that. And I can turn this off. All right. Go ahead and take your shot. Awesome. Beautiful. Look at that. Perfect exposure. Perfect exposure.
Yeah.
All right. And I did that without taking any test shots. I did that without taking any test shots. All right. I took a light meter reading. All right. I said, this is what.
That's a clean process, yes.
Oh, yeah. Once you get comfortable with this, all right, this is an indispensable tool. All right. Now, what we just did is compare 2 different methods of getting our light, right? One is shoot and pray. No, one is you shoot, you chimp, you adjust, right? It got you there within a couple of frames, right? not a big deal. All right. Oftentimes, if I'm just using one light, that's the direction I gotta go, because workflow wise, it tends to be a little quicker. Okay. Especially because I can control the settings right from the camera. Okay. Where this becomes an invaluable tool is when you have 2 or more lights for your scene. All right. Not all those lights are going to be set to the same power, because you want to control your power. Okay, make sense? All right. Any questions on how to use the light meter, real quick? All right. It takes practice. I'll let you know. All right, but it is an indispensable tool. Okay. All right. So now we have our light set, right? We have our camera set, okay? As long as the distance of the light to the model does not change, we can now put all our attention on the model, all right? So let's see if we can get a nice exposure just from what we have here, all right? What I want you to do is just put it on 70 millimeter. Let's crank that up and get nice and close. We want to take nice, close, beautiful shots. Okay. So at this point, once you have, your light set up, you can focus on your model and then start directing your model. Okay.
Yeah. Can I ask a question here?
Yeah.
What you just said, that confused me a little bit. That, in other words, you said as long as the distance between the light and the model doesn't change, you're
Correct.
free to focus on the model. But doesn't the power of the light fall off as the camera gets farther away from her or closer to her?
No, not the camera.
Really? So even if the camera is close to her base, it's still
Yeah.
going to pick up the same amount of light?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because we measured, what did we measure? We measured the light that falls here, not the light that falls over there. Okay? The camera is capturing
the incident light and the others are reflected light.
Correct. All right. So this light is about maybe 2.5 feet from her. Okay. As long as we maintain 2.5 feet, the amount of light hitting our model, Amanda, I keep saying our model, she's got a name. All right. That will always be constant. All right. So you're free to walk around. You're free to change lenses. You're free to get close in, whatever. All right. The amount of light hitting her is not going to change. As soon as I do this, all right, go ahead and take a shot. As soon as I do this, we're going to see a big difference. Okay?
We now need new math.
Now we need new math. Okay? Now we need new math. All right? Okay, but you mentioned fall off. All right? So this is actually something that once we understand it, we can actually use to our benefit. Okay? If I half the distance from our original position to our new position, okay, I am increasing the amount of light by 2 stops.
4 times, right?
Okay, exactly, 4 times. All right, so 2 stops. Okay, so if we know that, and if we roughly, I mean, I didn't measure, I just roughly shifted the light in. All right, you could have
prepared for both without doing anything.
Yeah, trust me, our eyes are very good at determining distances, a lot better than you think. You don't need to get that complicated. All right.
Okay.
So we moved our light in about half the distance. So we need to remove 2 stops of light from our exposure. Okay. So remember, originally I took a meter reading at 2.8. Do you remember what the setting was for our light? Anybody remember what the setting was for the light? What the power was? It was 1/16th. 1/16th, yeah. All right. So we were at 1/16th. We said it was 2 stops underexposed, right? So we cranked up the power 2 stops to 1/4 plus a third, right? So now we moved it in. We gained 2 stops. So what should we set our light to now?
1/16.
1/16th. That was fairly easy, right? So let's go ahead and set that to 1/16th. All right, to set it, we're on light B. We press that. We bring that down to 1/16 plus a third. We go set. Go ahead and take a shot.
I have a question.
Yes.
Why would you do that rather than change the power of the flash?
Perfect question.
Wanting the F8 picture.
Perfect question. Actually, that's still probably a little bit too hot. So I probably moved it in closer than more than halfway. All right. So now and I'll get to your question in a second.
That's fine.
I didn't. All right. I did the mental math. Okay. Took a shot. We say, oh, we're still a little bit too hot. All right. So let's drop it down a little bit more. Let's go from 1/16th to, what is it? 1/32. Let's try that. 1/32. All right. Okay. Good. All right. Hold that thought. All right. Let me go to which one was it? This one here. Let's see. These two are about the same, right? Okay. Okay. Oh. Where is our give me 1 second. I need to make one adjustment here. Compare. All right. So we have the image that we just took is the vertical one. The previous image is the horizontal. Okay. All right. You can see that our camera settings are the same. We haven't changed anything on the camera. All we did was adjust the power on our light. Okay. And we moved in. Okay. What that did is it effectively made the size of our light source relative to our model, relative to Amanda, a lot bigger because it's right in her face, right? Okay. That meme, small, far away, big, up close. All right. Everybody seen that meme? All right. Same thing. All right. So the closer it is, the bigger it is. All right. But if we look at the quality of the light between these two, you're going to see a big difference. All right. Which one is better? Subjective. All right. Which one is better? That is dependent on the look that you're trying to obtain. All right. So me personally, I like that second shot better than that first shot. Make sense? Everybody, you like it better, right?
Vertical shot you like better.
I like that one better. The light is a little softer. All right. So how do we determine how soft or hard a light is? Anybody know? Anybody? How do we determine the quality of light? All right. The term hard light, soft light. How do we measure that? Anybody?
Diffusion?
The diffusion, yes, but the diffusion actually does something very specific that gives us that term. All right. What we're actually looking for is the shadow edge transition. Shadow edge transition. All right. The transition from light to dark. All right. The softer the light, it has a more gradual transition, where something that's a hard light will have a more clearly defined edge between dark and light. Okay, so if you think about like a bright sunny day, hard, sharp edges to the shadow, we call that hard light. Hard light. Okay, it's actually not the light that gives us that term, it's the shadow edge transitions. All right. That shadow edge transition is what gives us the quality to our portraits. All right. So that's what we're trying to control. All right. So by bringing it in closer, we get a little bit more of that wraparound light. Okay. And I want you to also notice, all right, because we really haven't been talking too much about our second zone. What's our second zone here? Our second zone is
The background.
the background. Look what it did to our background between the two shots. Everybody sees the difference? It's a lot darker in the second one, okay? So we have a much moodier light, okay? We're still working with a single light, but the placement of the light in relation to the background, all right, we're going to give us two different results. Further away, we need to really up the power, all right, in order to cover that distance, all right? So we're hitting our subject with a lot more power, which in turn hits the background with a lot more power. All right, so we have that light fall off, okay? So if we measure from the light to the subject to the background, all right, if that subject is halfway between our light and the background, we know that we're going to lose about 2 stops of light. Okay? All right. So if, what's that?
Another question. Did you want to finish that thought first?
All right. As soon as we move it in, all right, the drop off becomes more drastic. All right. And now we brought the light closer to our subject, but we did not bring the subject closer to our background. All right. So the halfway point has actually shifted behind our subject. All right. So in effect, we are losing less light. I'm sorry, we're losing more light hitting our background the closer we bring our light in. All right. That's why our background dropped. All right. Go ahead. Ask your question.
Yeah, just a question. So obviously on the camera, the f-stops are in steps.
Correct.
And when we're doing the power setting, we're doing those in steps. But
Correct.
Are there lights that are available that are continuous power, have continuous power settings as opposed to stepped? Or are you stuck with those intervals?
No. You can have, well, actually, believe it or not, controlling these lights from the camera, I can control it in steps by a third of a stop. All right. If I walk to the light itself, all right, there's a little dial here. I can actually control it in tenths of a stop. So I have much finer control. All right. With continuous light, more often than not, a lot of the continuous lights are either they're on or off. All right? Unless they are, for some reason, they have a built-in dimmer. Okay.
Hey, Doug, may I ask a question about the light? and you can answer it later if you prefer to answer it later. I notice you're using a softbox.
Correct.
And I've seen situations where people use an aluminum background for the light, and the light flashes against the aluminum background to hit the person. When would you use
Oh,
each kind of light?
okay. So, all right. Before I answer that, let me ask this question. Everybody follow everything that I've done so far about getting the powers in relation to the camera settings?
Yes.
All right.
What always left is the question I asked you, why you didn't change the power of the flash rather than the f-stop.
All right. Well, I'm not changing my aperture stops because I want to shoot at a very specific aperture.
So you
For
went from f8 to f16.
no, no. Okay. Yeah. All right. I went from f2.8 to f5.6 in power.
Right.
All right. And then I went from, when I moved it in, all right, we went from f5.6 to f11. All right. I'm doing the math in my head. A little bit more than f11. Almost, almost f16. Okay. And then I dropped the power back to f5.6. Okay. But that was on the light side. My camera always stayed at 5.6.
Got it.
All right. So what I'm doing is every time I move my light, I need to adjust the power so that the power output measures at 5.6.
5.6. That
Okay.
makes sense. Thank you.
All right. So now, what is 5.6 in relation to this light? It's an arbitrary number because this light is a 300 watt light. If I have another strobe that's 1200. If I put that strobe light at the same power level, I'm going to get more light from it than from this one.
Of course.
All right? Right. So we really can't measure by power. Okay? We just use power as a way of communicating what we're trying to dial in. Okay? Obviously, we can't put f-stops on that back LED because that f-stop is going to be different whether we're close or further away from our subject and by the actual watt power of our light. All right, so we can't use that because the f-stop power is measured at the subject. All right, so I want to make sure that I measure 5.6 at my subject anytime I make a change.
Right. By the way, modern continuous lights, you can change the temperature and the color and the intensity.
Yes, a lot of them you can. Yeah,
Right.
but they still make dumb continuous lights that it's either on or off. All right.
No, the thing yesterday, I just saw so many that.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. All right. Obviously, in a studio environment, you want something that you can have control over. So you'll want something where you can dial into power. Okay. But remember, the amount of power that comes out of a light, all right, is based on the full power. All right. So I have 300 watt seconds on this flash. All right.
Okay.
I can't get more than that. I can get less. I can't get more. All right. A lot of continuous lights, they usually are not as powerful. You might get one that's like 150 watts.
No, you'd have,
Okay.
if you want to go continuous light, you have to have the lights closer. You have to carry more in. You have to have a reliable. I do it all the time.
Yeah.
But you need reliable batteries
Yeah,
And you have to think about it.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. All
And
right.
if you want, here's a tricky trick. If someone does want continuous lighting, use a spot leader and put it on her forehead and opened up one stop from what you received. That would be accurate.
Correct. Correct.
Doctor,
Yeah.
on these lights, especially the flash type lights, are they always incandescent, or do they have LEDs, and is there a preference one over the other?
Well, these are flash bulb intermittent lights. Okay. Are you talking about the modeling lights on these?
Well, no, I'm just talking about the bulb itself, right? So it's still that one's still an incandescent type bulb.
Oh,
right?
yes. I see what you mean. Yes.
As
yes.
opposed to an LED type source.
Yeah, they're starting to experiment with LED flash. LED's just not quite there. All right. What they're finding is that the few flashes that are LED based, they are very inconsistent with power and definitely very inconsistent with color temperature. I mean, they're all over the place in color temperature wise. All right. So the technology is just not quite there. All right. You're better off with these. But the nice thing is, incandescent's still cheaper than LED flash. All right. And they're more reliable. So, use that for what it's worth. Okay. All right. All right. So now, if we look at this second photo, that's probably a lot closer to the sample that we showed earlier, correct? All right. Let me go ahead and pull that one up. Okay, actually, I think it was that one. It's closer to that one, right? Okay. So now that we have our numbers dialed in, we can concentrate on the artistic aspect of it, okay? So this is where light placement comes into effect, right? So we have it here at 45 degrees to our subject, all right, actually 45 degrees this way, okay, to our subject, and roughly 45 degrees above eye level, okay? This is very typical portrait lighting, all right? But we can get a little bit more technical with this, all right? So in relation to our subject, where would you like to put our light? Just pick anywhere within that 160, 180 degrees.
Waste, I would think.
Are you talking about a second light, Doc?
No. Our main light, we're just going to shift it. We're going to move it to a new
A
location.
little bit here.
A little bit closer to the
Yeah.
front. Okay. All right.
Not too.
We're going to hide
Just a
our
little
poor
bit.
subject. Okay. All right.
Amanda is gone.
Amanda's gone. She's hidden from view. Darn it. Okay, so obviously we have to be careful of how we do our light in relation to where we need to stand. If we're sharing the same space as the light, we have to work around the light. So go ahead and notice I didn't quite put it directly in front. We're still a little bit off to one side. Okay.
Let me see here.
All right. So make sure you're at 70 millimeter, nice and close. Okay. And see if you can avoid photographing the light if possible. Okay, let's see what that, oh. Hold on, let me, there we go. And, oops. Put this back to here. Let's put that onto loop view. There we go. All right. We need to add a little bit of light, okay? But if we compare that one to the previous one, all right, if we compare that to the previous one, you can see how we've eliminated a lot of shadows. All right, you'll have to look there. Okay, we've eliminated a lot of. Let me put this in compare. We've eliminated a lot of the shadows. All right, we need to increase. Okay. All right, so now we have something that's a little bit flatter light. All right, not very appealing. Okay. What you have to keep in mind here is what we're doing is we're taking a three-dimensional subject and we are reinterpreting it onto a two-dimensional plane. All right. But we want to present it as a three-dimensional object. So in order to get across the fact that we're dealing with a three-dimensional object, we have to show that dimensionality. All right. And we show that by the interplay of light to shadow. All right. So in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, that light's a little bit too flat. Okay. A little bit too flat. Okay. But also we're not really hitting her directly. There we go. Okay. All right. So are there times where you need this? Absolutely. Is this wrong? No. What you have to do is you have to judge one against the other. And this is where experimenting with your lighting setups comes into play. All right. Because you're going to find that there is certain light that tends to be a little bit more flattering than others. Okay. For example, an older woman, you don't want anything that where the light just kind of grazes across the front because it's going to show all the wrinkles and they hate that. All right. We have a very young girl here. She has no wrinkles to worry about. Okay. So we don't have to worry about accentuating any wrinkles. Okay. So she's good. All right. All right. But what we're going to do now is I'm just going to pick another position and I'm going to shift this directly to the side. Okay. Directly to the side. All right. All right, and go ahead and take a shot. Hopefully, I eyeballed the distance. All right. Hopefully, I'm good. How are we doing? Okay. All right, so now between the first one and that second one, all right, the previous one and this one, why do you like it better?
Because the lights are much
It,
better.
it contours her features a lot more.
Yes.
Okay.
These
All
are
right.
no.
Yeah. Previously, we literally had no. I mean.
This is the last one.
All right.
Is this
So
the last
let
one?
me hold on. Let me go ahead and on this one, I'm just going to. Where are we? Let me move this out of the way. This one here, let me just pump up the exposure so that the two kind of match. All right, and oops, let's set it up for that one too. All right, okay. There we go. Okay. All right, so you can see one is rather flat. The other one, we have shadows that kind of sculpt it, okay? Now, obviously, you have to say, well, is that too much sculpting, okay? Is it too much sculpting, okay? Who knows, all right? This is where experimentation and eventually, you know, your memory bank is going to get filled up with all these different setups that you can say, okay, all right? So, let's say we want to do something kind of like that example where it's kind of like hitting, she's looking sideways and it's just illuminating. Okay. Let's see if we can do that. All right. So, do me a favor, dear, stand up for 1 second. I'm going to turn the chair so that she's facing straight into the light. Okay, and you're just going to take her side profile. Okay, and we're literally going to place the light so it's hitting her face front. Okay, and you're just going to take a nice profile shot, and don't be afraid to get in there. We want
The whole thing,
We want
or
like this.
just her,
Yeah. no. Okay. All right. Let's take a look at that. All right. Oh, very nice. Very nice. Okay. All right. So once you get your light set up kind of the way you want, from here it becomes a matter of finessing, right? Finessing the light, right? Do I want more shadow behind her, or do I want a little bit more light behind her? Okay. Do I want more light on the background or less light on the background? Okay. So anybody want to throw a suggestion for this particular shot? What would you suggest, Corey?
Hair light.
Do what?
Hair light?
Hair light? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right. If we're going to put in a hair light, we're going to have to introduce a second light. Okay. Because we have this light, which is hitting the front of her face. Obviously, no matter what we do with that light, that will never hit the back of her head. Okay. So we need to introduce the second light. Okay, so we're going to do that. We're going to bring this light in. This one. Bring this light in. I need to unplug. Plug this. We're gonna introduce a hair light, okay? And a hair light, what is a hair light? Light that hits the back of the hair, okay? It's an accent light, right? It's a hair light. You can call it a catch light. You can call it an accent light, a halo light. It doesn't matter what you call it, as long as you get it to do what you want. Okay, so we want a certain amount of control. I don't want the light going all over the place, so I actually going to keep it in this little reflector. Okay, oops, falling apart. Little reflector. Hopefully everybody can see that. Right. Okay. And what that's going to do is it's going to keep the light from spreading out. Additionally, I like controlling my hair lights a little bit more. And I will use something like this, which is a honeycomb grid. Okay. A honeycomb grid is nothing more than a grid that really concentrates the light. So you can see Amanda, but as soon as I start turning this, she disappears. All right, because the light coming from her is no longer able to pass through. All right, now it can, now it doesn't. All right, so it really focuses the light in a direction. Right, so I'm going to put this on to focus the light onto the back of her head. And hope we don't put so much power that it frizzles her hair. No, we're going to bring this up. Okay, and obviously we want it above her level. Okay. Pointing down at the back of her head, all right? And we have to be careful about how we place this light. How much light do we want to the front of her hair versus the back of her hair? How much light do we want on top of her head versus the back of her head? All right, so these are all artistic choices that you need to make. All right, so what would you suggest, Gloria, since this is your shoot? In relation to her head, top, back,
Back.
front, side, back,
Back.
Yes.
Yes.
Here,
Yes.
and the back part of the
Yeah.
crown. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the light behind her. Okay. And we're going to aim it at the top of her head. We turn this on. Okay. And I'm just going to do a quick test fire. All right. By doing a quick test fire, I can see exactly where it's hitting my subject. Okay. And that looks, from this perspective, it looks like it's in the general vicinity of where I want it to hit, or where you want it to hit. Okay. We're gonna adjust that as we finesse our lights. Okay. So now we've introduced another light. We have introduced another zone. Okay. All right. So what we need to do is figure out how much light do we want to put on the back of her head. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn off this light. All right. This is on channel, or on group B. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn group B off. Mode off. That light is group C. All right. And the reason I'm keeping them separate is because I want separate settings. If I put that and that light and this light on group B, it's always going to be whatever light the key light is. Okay. So we're going to go C, and we're going to go mode manual, and that's at 100%. I don't want 100%. Okay. My light goes from 1/64 to 1. I want the middle, which is about F8 or 1/8 power. So I'm going to put it at 1/8 power, and we're going to take a test shot. All right. So again, nice and close, tight. Okay. What I've done is I've isolated that second light from everything else. So the only thing we should see is, woo, she's got a halo going on. Okay.
Oh, that's cool.
That's cool. Okay. If you are the photographer and that's what you want, by all
I'm
means.
saying if that with the other light would bring her, yeah, I mean, I like the way it would do that. I could see where you could do stuff with that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. All right. So, in my opinion, it's a little bit too much. Okay.
Oh, right. Right, I would dial it, but I like the idea.
Yeah. So now, all right, now we have something that we can look at and compare against, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because we can compare against what we're trying to achieve, we can look at it and say, okay, is that too much light or not enough light? What is it? Too much light. So if it's too much light, what do we got to do? We got to reduce the light. So we're at 1/8 power. All right. So we go C, 1/8 power. All right. And you can see that's a lot. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put, is it 120? No, I think 1/64th is this one. Set. Okay. Let's take a shot and see what that does. Okay, good. All right. Now, if you notice between that first shot and the second shot, all right, because we've reduced the power from 1/8 to what was it, 1/64, all right, we robbed it of a lot of light. So we're not getting all that overspill bouncing back, illuminating her face, okay, which is great because we have our initial key light that's going to be taking care of our face, all right? But what do you think of the hair light here? Yes, no, maybe?
It's okay.
It's okay? Can it be better? Any suggestions from you guys?
Yeah, yeah, I'd probably put the hair light more on this side of her and have it come in at a 45-degree angle.
Okay, I can't see you, so I don't know what this side is.
Oh, I'm sorry. So, in other words, I would have it more toward the right side of her face, but moved out just enough to light the right-hand side of her face.
Okay,
So
well,
I'd
no,
have to
no. We have a key light for that. All right, the key light's been turned off on purpose because I don't want to illuminate her face.
Got it,
All
got
right,
it, got it.
so this is just a hair light. I want to control what it's doing to the hair.
Then I'd like to see a shot with the two lights now, with where you
All
have.
right, well, yeah, but I want to dial in my hair light first. Okay, and I want to dial it in without the influence of the other light, because trying to juggle two lights at the same time becomes a little bit confusing because you don't know which light is doing what. Okay, so for example, the image on the right, okay, that was our first image. Okay, if my key light was on, all right, and you looked at it and you said, well, you know, her face is lit, would you be able to tell that the hair light we added was also influencing her face? No, we wouldn't, because we got that key light that's influencing her face, right? So it would have been like, oh, we got a lot of light on her face. What do we got to change? All right. So again, it's about
What's it contributing, right?
exactly. We want to simplify, we want to isolate, and we want to tackle each one specifically. All right. So in this case, we want to drop a little bit more power, maybe take it a little bit further back behind her head, so we get a little bit more of a edge light rather than, you know, a spot on the back. Okay. So we are maxed out with how low we can go with power. Okay, so we can't dial it down anymore. So what can we do to remove light?
Distance.
Distance, absolutely. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to back this light up. Okay, we're going to back it up. Okay, see if we can raise it up a little bit more. All right, and I'm going to drop it behind her a little bit more. Just going to do a quick test pop. Okay. And we'll see if that does anything. All right, so take a test shot. Okay. Now, if I meter this, the only thing I'm going to get from that meter reading is the amount of power, not quite what it's going to look like from the camera point of view. Look at that. That's beautiful. All right. So now we have the hair light looking the way we want. And if you notice, it's not affecting her face. It's not affecting the background. It's not affecting anything else other than her hair. All right. So at this point, we kick in our key light, which is our B. We go, which is at 1/32 power. And we take our composite shot. And then the model made an artistic decision. Okay. I like it.
Very
Yeah,
good.
I think what I would do is I would say don't put your hand up, because what it's doing, it's competing with your face. All right, so what we'll do is we'll just keep your head down. All right, and we're getting, all right, see that light that's hitting our background? That's from our key light. That's from this light right here, key light. Okay, so now we have to make a decision.
Oh, beautiful.
Do we want, okay,
Wow.
do we want that light hitting that background in this area?
Mm-mm.
No. Okay. So what do? We need to point the light away from our background. Okay. We're keeping the same distance. We're just shifting, all right, instead of hitting directly at her, because now remember, as it comes out of that softbox, it's going to spread sideways as well. All right. But because it's in a box, it can only spread so much. All right. So if we have spread that's hitting our background, if we just do this, we're shifting that spread away from our background, still hitting our subject. All right. But now we have a little bit more control. Okay. So take a shot. How are we doing for time? We're almost there. Nice.
Wow.
And of course, we got garbage in the background because some photographer needs to get all that garbage out of the way.
Needs a bigger room.
Yeah, I do. I really do need a larger studio. But go to 70. Are you at 70 millimeter? Go to 70 and walk in close. Get really, really close. There we go. Oh my God, beautiful. Beautiful.
Yes.
All right. Any questions? Any questions? What do you think, Gloria?
I like it
Okay.
very much.
All right. Now, what happens if we just keep the lights as it is and have her turn her face just towards us? Go ahead and
Like this?
3/4 view. All right. Get in nice and close. Don't be shy. All right, there we go. Nice and moody. Okay. So you can see we can play around with that setup, all right, and get different looks. Okay.
Mhm.
And as long as obviously you keep in mind that you have a key light and you have a hair light and what their relations are to the subject. Okay. All right. Earlier today, I gave Amanda a question to ponder. All right. One of the things that we haven't really discussed here, because we've been kind of concentrating on the lighting, is how we interact with the model. Okay. Up to now, we've kind of said, we've let Amanda do whatever it is. We haven't given her much guidance as to the pose. All right. I asked her to drop her hand on that last one. And other than that, look towards the light here, look away from the light there, blah, blah, blah. All right.
He's more been an object for the evening.
Yeah. Unfortunately. All right. But we are in a teaching environment. All right. If we take this and we convert it to you working with your client, you're going to be a little bit more hands-on with the direction. And one of the things that I find with people or with photographers who do not do a lot of people photography is that they really lack communication. All right. So I asked Amanda to think about, like, her top 3 things that she wishes photographers would do during a session with a model. That what did you come up with?
Okay, so number one, he basically took it, just like instructions, like helping you find the right angle and like, the right pose for what they want it to be.
Yeah. And why do you think that's important?
Because honestly, if I'm just doing my own thing like the hair, the light's gonna hit my face, but it would more hit my hand. And
Right.
it would take away from it.
Yeah. And you can't see that.
Exactly.
Right? So she has a much different perspective than you would have as the photographer. All right. All she can do is rely on her imagination as to what she thinks that photo looks like. Okay. So one of the things that, like she stressed here, is you need to open up communication. All right. What's another?
That was like the main one.
That was the main one? Okay. All right. Well, we'll deal with that. All right. One of the ways you can open up communication is by actually showing your model what it is you're getting. All right. So in this case, we have the option of, the monitor. She can actually see every shot that we've been taking. Okay. So with this setup, I can say, oh, I like this, but see how your hand is and such as, all right, can we loosen it up a little bit? She can see the previous shot and be able to make the appropriate adjustments because she's getting that visual feedback. Okay. The other thing is she wouldn't know to adjust her hand like that if nobody told her. All right. Now, when it comes to working with a model, one of the hardest things is posing. It's difficult for the photographer. It's difficult for the model. All right. The model does not know what you want. Okay. And often than not, a new photographer doesn't know what they want. Okay. So often I suggest getting some example photos and then going from that. All right. The other thing that I encourage is, all right, give a general instruction to your model, kind of like what we did. All right. And then your model's going to come up with a couple things on their own. What I suggest is don't rush past those. All right. It's very easy to say, ooh, I like it, and then move on to something else, rather than saying, ooh, I like it, stopping and saying, why do I like this? Okay. And because I like it, can I make it better? All right. So how do we make something better? We look at the little things that are off. All right. What is wrong with this photo that I like? All right. Because I may like it, but there may be 1 or 2 little things that are just that little bit off. All right. So we take that core concept and we fine tune it. We don't rush past it. Okay. So we have that nice side. All right. That nice side view of Amanda. All right. We can say, okay, what do we like? What do we not like? Okay. So one of the things might be that, maybe I want to see her eyes a little bit more open. All right. Because it could have been that when we triggered it, it caught her mid blink. All right. So enough to have her eye open, but maybe not fully open. All right. So little things like that takes practice and experience to kind of like be able to analyze and catch. All right. But if you slow down, really look at the image and say, okay, what do I need to change to make it better? All right. So what can we make better with that photo? All right. See if you can spot 3 different things. I'm going to make her work. And you guys take a look at it. All right. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and keep it to just this one. All right.
Which
This
one?
this one right here. That one. Okay. We're gonna work on that pose. All right, and we're gonna then we'll wrap it up. Okay.
Oh, I don't see anything.
All right. How about the amount of space above her head?
So it has to be a little bit.
Well, I don't know. You're the photographer. What do you think? That's one thing that's jumping out at me.
Mhm.
Okay. Number 2 for me was her eye. All right.
Mhm.
Okay. We really can't quite see enough of it, so let's see if maybe we can bring some of the eye in. And for me, the other one is the collar. The collar looks a little strange.
yeah.
All right. It's a lot of shadow, hiding a little bit. Okay. So I'm giving you those 3. How's that? All right. So what I need you to do,
Teacher.
I need you to correct for those 3 things.
Right now.
Yeah. All right.
So do I have to tell her to look at this? To my.
Well, how's she gonna know otherwise? Right? Okay. So, yeah. All right. Now, one of the things is whenever you're making changes, all right, don't look at it with your eyes. Look at it through the camera, all right? Because what you are comparing against is something that the camera just caught, all right? So you want to look through the camera, make sure that the changes that you're making are going to read properly, all right? So look through the camera, look through your camera, and see if those changes made a difference, right? You don't have to take a picture, just look through the camera.
A little bit to this side.
Okay.
Little tiny bit.
A little tiny bit, okay. All right, and you can have her shift her eyes a little bit too, if you need to see her eyes. So look right at my fingers. All right, how's that look from your view?
Just because I want to see
The pupils, right? Okay, so we're gonna look right here. And
Yes.
go ahead and take a shot. Oh, our flash did not go off. Take another quick shot. Guess our flash did not go off. I think it fell asleep. Okay, and we'll take a look at that. And all right, okay. Maybe a little bit too much
to this side.
to the camera side. Okay, I like the face position. All right, so look right here at this edge. All right, take one more shot. Okay. All right, so everything else looks good. We caught a little bit of the light modifier, but that's okay. That can be edited out. Oh, too much face.
Yeah.
Too much face. Yeah, a little bit better. Okay. All right. We're not going to stress over too much, but you get what I mean, right?
Mhm.
Take your time, work the subject. All right, my dear, you can relax. I'll take the camera. You can relax. All right, and we will go ahead and open it up to questions.
You know what I like that you did? You have a lot of layers, like in her hair, her face. If her face were turned and this was a portrait session, I would find that an interesting effect. To measure the light in such a way that everything is like the instruments in an orchestra, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. you know. And of course, if I wanted to really control my background, I might throw in a third light just for the background, you know. So
Hey Doug,
yes.
the question I had earlier about the different kinds of light, why, when would you use a softbox versus, and I don't know what it's called, the type of light where the light hits back at the aluminum or the silver in a back of the light to hit the person.
Like a reflective umbrella.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right. Um,
So just preference? Just preference?
just preference. Okay. There are a ton of different types of modifiers. Each one is going to give you a slightly different look. All right. So, for example, if I were to take that softbox off and put an umbrella, okay. If I put a small umbrella, it's going to give me a different look than if I put a large umbrella. Okay. So what I suggest is experiment with the different modifiers you have and see what results you get. So that way you can make a conscious decision, an informed decision about which modifiers you use.
Off the top of my head, without thinking about it, I think I would want to use a soft box so that the person doesn't look harsh.
Correct. The more diffused you can get your light, the nicer quality you're going to get. All right. So if I were to take, let me, I'm going to turn my, go ahead, give me a second. Let me retether back to the camera. Start. Okay. Sorry. No, it's all right. It's all right. Okay, so we see what it looks like with a softbox, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let me switch. There we go. Okay. All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to dropping things. I'm going to switch to a standard reflector. Okay. So what do you think this is going to do to our light?
I think it's going to make it harsher.
Absolutely. Okay. And what are you basing that on?
Just the fact that it's metal.
No.
And that you don't have a cloth in front to expand the light so it's not going straight at her.
Okay. All right. You're actually using pre-visualization to determine what you think that light's going to be based on your experience.
Yes.
Okay. So experience is going to dictate to a certain amount what you think a particular modifier is going to do. All right. And this is why you want to experiment. Okay. Now, actually, I'm taking away a lot of diffusion from this light. I'm sorry, dear. I'm going to friggin' blind you on this one. Right? What we want to do is we want to change our. Give me 1 second. I'm going to turn that light off. And I'm just going to work with this light, right? We took the diffusion off, so that means I have to reduce the amount of light. No, we're good. Actually, do me a favor. I'm going to have you press that button.
Right now?
Yep. All right. Oh, we're actually at 5.6 and a half. So we're actually fairly good. All right. I'm going to, it does need to be reduced. set. Okay, ready, press that button one more time. All right, almost 5.6, good enough. Good enough for government work, okay? So what I'm gonna do is actually go ahead and not look right at the light, but look kind of off to the side over there. Yep. And bring your nose to me just a little, right there, perfect. Let's see what that looks like. All right, and
To me, it looked as if the light didn't flash.
I don't think the backlight flashed. The front light flashed. The backlight,
Okay,
yeah. All right, but if we look at that, we can see how harsh the light is.
yeah.
All right, it's not very flattering at all. Not very flattering at all. All right. Would I use that on my female subject for a
Absolutely
portrait
not.
like this?
Absolutely not.
Ooh, no. Is there a use for it? Absolutely. All right. If I was doing,
If you wanted to show a tough guy, somebody who is a rugged type of person,
I was
Yeah.
gonna say for a post office shot.
post office shot, yeah, yeah. Maybe I want to do something with, for example, a fashion shot. All right, I might play around with something like that for a fashion shot where I want a little bit, more punchy, contrasty light. Okay. Let me turn on the backlight. Set. Okay. And do me a favor, just look towards me a little bit, yeah. All right, there we go. Okay. Again, not very flattering, all right? But we can work with something like that, okay? I would probably take something and use maybe a reflector to soften that shadow in the front a little bit more, okay? But again, not very flattering light, all right? But this definitely has a lot of power to it, okay? So maybe not good for people, but maybe good for a product,
yeah.
right?
Could be, yeah.
Mhm.
Maybe good for a particular type of still life. Could be. Absolutely. All right. But if you don't experiment, if you don't play around with it, you don't know. Okay? All right. We're going to take you off the hot seat. Okay. All right. Any other questions? I'm going to go ahead and turn these lights off. Any other
I have
questions?
a general question on the term you used earlier on.
Sure. All right. Here you go.
Whereas shadow edge transition.
Okay. Shadow edge transition.
So when you're setting up something, is there things you can think about to increase or decrease that, or something you think about that after you may get it in Lightroom or Photoshop or?
Edge transitions are very difficult to do in post production, simply
Okay.
because they really are baked into your image. Okay. Shadow edge we really have really bad light here. All right. This is why you don't photograph with these lights. Look how terrible it makes her look. Okay. All right. Where the light hits, all right, and where the shadow starts, there's going to be a transition. All right. I know that sounds rather vague. Okay. Let me put it this way. Actually, here. Let me go to the desktop. Okay. we have our light source, okay? And we have all this area that's being illuminated on her face, right? Okay. We know we have proper exposure when we can see the skin tone, right? And the skin tone on the photograph looks like the skin tone on our model, right? This is called the true tone value. True tone value, okay? From there, we have areas that are a lot brighter, all right? We got little highlights, okay, along the ridge of the nose there, all right? Maybe on the lips, okay? This little bit of an edge there. Those areas are brighter than her skin tone, all right? Those are our highlights, okay? And then we have, let's see, give me 1 second. I think I gotta turn off my, okay. And then we have our area of shadows, okay? All of these areas of shadow here, right? All right. And what we see is there's a demarcation line here, all right? I'm following the shadow line. See that? Okay. On this side is shadow, on this side is light. Okay? That's our demarcation line. That is our transition line. Okay? And if we look at the transition line, we see that it's very abrupt. It goes from shadow to light very, very quickly. Very quickly. All right? So we label this as a hard light. And the reason it's a hard light is because that transition is very hard. Okay? I can literally follow it with a line. Okay? And if this was a paint by number, I would know to paint one side of it dark and the other side of it light. Okay? All right. If we go, let's see. If we go to, where was our soft one? Okay, here we go. Okay. If we go to this one, all right, we can see, you guys, I don't know, you guys can't see it.
Yes.
All right, if we go to this one, we can see that we have shadow areas, okay, all right, and we have light areas, okay, and we even have our highlight areas, okay. But if we look at the transition between one to the other, all right, it's a lot softer. All right, it's not like you can say, all right, at one point we start going from light to dark. Is it here? Is it here? Is it here? Okay, because it's like different gradations of light and dark. We can't see a very defined border between the light and the dark. All right. So this is where we call it a soft transition or soft light. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. All right. So that's a form of control that we have based on the type of modifier that we use. The more diffused the light is, the softer the transition. The more of a bare bulb we use, the harder the transition is going to be. Okay? And this is where experimenting with, an umbrella, a soft box, a beauty dish, a bare bulb, a metal reflector, all plays in. Okay. All righty, guys. We are definitely way over time, but
This was good, Doug. Thank you.
I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. Did you guys?
Amanda and Gloria, thank you for participating in
Oh,
this.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Here,
Thank you. Yeah, this
I'll
was
put
great.
them.
Very informative.
Oops, there we go. There's Amanda. All right. Gloria's ducking out. She doesn't want to. There she is.
There we are.
Oh,
Yeah. There she is.
oh, she keeps hiding.
Yeah, you got
Oh,
to stand next
it's
to.
here.
Stand next to.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Awesome.
Yay.
Yeah. All right. Okay, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's presentation. I hope you got something out of it. I would suggest, dust off those strobe lights if you've been hesitant about using them. All right. Hopefully, I've made it a little bit easier to understand and less scary, right, Gloria? Less
Yes.
scary.
Yeah.
By the way, Doug, thank you for saying, think of the settings first, then think of how you want to have your light setting. We used to do it the opposite way at NHTV. People,
Oh, well,
we would do the lights and then change the iris.
yeah, because in a TV studio, you're working with continuous lights.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're working with lights that are overhead. They're set. It's not like you
Yeah.
can play around with them. So yeah, totally different aspect when you're working with continuous. Yes.
I don't want to take a lot of time, but I
Oh.
noticed that in your studio, you seem to have like walls but no windows.
Oh yeah, I have no windows. I am in a corner. I am the wall behind me.
Yeah.
I'm pointing this way because the green screen is directly behind me.
Yes.
But the wall behind me butts up to the boiler room for the building. It's an old industrial building.
Got it.
On the
is
other
your-
side is the street, so no
Okay.
windows.
So you're looking for, if I were to look for a studio, and I'm not right now, but if I, at some point in the future, it'd be better to have, for doing portraiture or other photography,
Ah.
it'd be better to have,
You don't want this.
you don't want this.
Don't want this. All right. If you're looking for a portrait studio, I suggest finding a portrait studio that has north-facing lights or windows.
Got it.
Okay, north-facing north-facing windows is going to give you the ability to use natural light, which is gorgeous for portraiture if you know how to control it. Okay, and at that point, your modifiers goes up onto the windows. Okay, and you want
Right.
modifiers that if you need to block them out, then you can block them out.
Yep.
Okay?
Okay.
You don't need to, as you saw, I mean, you can see my studio, the overhead lights, it's pretty bright in here. So it's
Yeah.
not like you need to kill all your ambient light to use flash. Okay?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
eventually you'll get to the point where you can mix your flash with your ambient and, get different results. So for
Sure.
portrait studio, definitely light, or I keep saying lights, windows.
Okay, thanks.
Make them north facing so you don't get that direct southern sun. So,
Okay.
all right, guys, it's been a pleasure. We are half hour overtime, so that just lets me know that we did an awesome job. I want to thank Gloria for coming in and doing this with us, and of course Amanda for being such a lovely model for us. We really appreciate it. All right, nothing next week. We won't be seeing you until the first Monday of December, where we go back to Lightroom. Okay. All righty,
Thanks,
guys.
Scott.
Always.
Thanks.
Happy
Oh.
Thanksgiving.
Wait. Oh yes, happy Thanksgiving. I almost forgot. I almost forgot. For those of you in the Connecticut area, CPTT is doing a photo walk on the 30th, which is a Wednesday. It's at 1 o'clock, obviously because we're losing light a little bit earlier, but we're going to be at the Tidal Marsh in North Haven. So if you're interested, come and join us. Bill, thank you for sharing that information. I saw it on Facebook. I appreciate it. So
Good.
hopefully we'll get some of your people involved.
Yes, yes.
All right. Take care, stay safe,
Thank you.
and have a good,
Have a good one. Okay.
Thanksgiving.
For watching Learning Photography with Duck. Brought to you in association with Milford Photo, your local full-service camera store. Located in downtown Milford, Connecticut, Milford Photo offers you a personalized shopping experience. From the latest camera gear to printing and framing services. And, of course, educational workshops to teach you the finer aspects of photography. Don't forget to tell them Duck sent you.